Good afternoon. I'm Father David. Thank you for joining me today for Disciple Time as we are looking at God demonstrates his love. So, all through this Lenten season, we are asking the question, what does it mean to be chosen? This week, the answer to that question is it means we change course. And as we looked at Sunday, oftentimes that course change comes as we see God demonstrating his love for us. And I shared that verse on Sunday. God demonstrates his love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. That is from Romans 5:8. And what I'm going to look at today, though, is the focus on the Old Testament readings from the book of Daniel. Now, we're going to look at how God demonstrated his love towards them and the course change that came as a result of that. And it kind of has a surprise ending. I really like it. So, if you know, from the reading today, we saw that Azariah stood up in the fire to speak. Now, it specifically mentions his name Azariah, and this is important because we all think of these three people as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These were the Babylonian names given to them during the captivity, but their Hebrew names were different. Their Hebrew names were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And oftentimes in the biblical texts, one of the interesting things is the Hebrew names can often add quite a bit to our comprehension of the story. So, what I thought we would do today is we would look at the Hebrew names versus the Babylonian names to kind of allow that to help inform us as to what this story is conveying. So, if you look here, I kind of broke this down. The Hebrew name for Hananiah means Yahweh is gracious. And so we have God's name right in his name, and it's just pointing to an aspect of God that he's gracious. His name was changed to the Babylonian name Shadrach, which means Sadur Aku commands. And Sadur Aku was a moon god in Babylonia. And so we see that he's getting his name changed from one that's connected to God being gracious to one being commanded by the moon god. Now, the other is Mishael, which means who is like El. You see that little ending there, El. We see that in the angel names like Gabriel, strength of God, or Mikael, likeness of God, or Raphael, healer of God. Well, this is Mishael, who is like God. And his name was changed to Meshach, which means who is like Sadur Aku. Again, they're transferring his name from one god to the other. And then finally, we see Azariah. And his name is particularly important to today's readings because his name means Yahweh has helped. And his name was changed from Yahweh has helped to Abednego, which means slave of the god Nebo. And so that's quite a difference in what their names mean and how they convey, but their original Hebrew names kind of point towards what the story is telling us, okay? And so we see as they're in the fire, Azariah, who is Abednego, cries for help. And that's very fitting because Azariah means Yahweh has helped. And what does he say? Here in Daniel 3:34 and 35, he says this, "For your name's sake, O Lord, do not deliver us up forever or make void your covenant. Do not take away your mercy from us for the sake of Abraham, your beloved, Isaac, your servant, and Israel, your holy one." So we see Azariah is calling on Yahweh. He's calling on God, and he's making his appeal through three things. First, God's namesake, which was known throughout the ancient world at this time as the one who rescued the Israelite nation out of Egypt. And then two, he's making that appeal to God's covenant that he had with Abraham, with Isaac, with Jacob, and he's even mentioning these names. And then third, we see there it says, "Do not take away your mercy." He's appealing to God's mercy. And that's the same mercy, as I said, that was demonstrated to them when he rescued them out of Egypt and out of the hands of the Egyptian Pharaoh and out of the power of the Egyptian gods. And so we see again this appeal in Daniel 3:43 where he says, "Deliver us by your wonders and bring glory to your name, O Lord." And so there's this focus again on the name of Yahweh as God, as Father in heaven. And what I like here is that we see that God does demonstrate his love to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in their struggles. And he does that by saving them from this fire that they've been thrown in. And one of the interesting things is in this account, we see that an angel appeared with them. And so many scholars believe this angel was Christ. And different people will debate that. But the point is, they were there in the fire. God showed up. God demonstrated his love. He saved them from the fire. And there was a change in course. And the change of course is kind of the surprise ending because it wasn't Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego that changed course in this situation where God's love was demonstrated. It was actually the ruler of this Babylonian nation. It was Nebuchadnezzar, and we see this in Daniel 3:28 through 30. Look what it says here. Look at this course change. Okay, it says, "Then Nebuchadnezzar said, 'Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces and their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way.' Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon." And this is basically the course change. Nebuchadnezzar was going from wanting to kill them for not bowing to his statue to saying anybody that gives them any problem is basically going to be killed and their house is going to be turned into rubble. So there was quite a change in the way Nebuchadnezzar not only viewed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but the way he viewed God. And so, what is the application for the journey today? It's this: in times of trial and struggle, call on God and then wait for his demonstration of love. And we can count and trust on that demonstration of love because we read in Romans 5:8, "He who did not spare his own son, but handed him over for us all, how will he not also give us everything else along with him?" Well, I'm Father David. Thank you for joining me today for Disciple Time. I'll see you next week.